What is good, Straw Hat Crew? Welcome back to another video. Y'all already know it's a banger. Let's go ahead and jump straight. It's a Alright, for today's title, we got Nobody Wants to Work Anymore. I wonder why. I'm gonna let it get through. I know y'all seen that fly just try to pop up on me like that. Next time he comes over here, it's not gonna be good for me. I promise you. Let's get in the video though.
Hiring minimum wage workers, or the trust fund baby who is angry that their gym is busy in the middle of the day. Nobody wants to work anymore. Now, I really hate to say this, but by looking at the numbers, they might have a point. Labor force participation is approaching generational lows even after the pandemic, while labor force participation amongst men specifically is the lowest it has ever been. These declines have been happening at the same time that unemployment is theoretically quite low, which, if the economists are to be believed, means it should be easy for people who want to get a job to get a job, right? Well, not quite. And these numbers are confusing at best, or downright misleading at worst.
Is people just don't want to go to
There was
work.
a poll I read a long time ago. Only like 18% of Americans feel engaged when they're at work.
I hate my job!
The signs are everywhere. Businesses, especially restaurants, need employees and they need them
Dude,
now.
less than 20% of the country likes their fucking job.
Okay,
I just think that I know I paused. Y'all know how I get down. But I just think the pay needs to be increased by a little bit across the board. I feel like that's what makes people able to stick to jobs, is the pay. Whenever you're fucking, I know when I had my job and I was over there, fuck, this shit is so ass, bro. I can't do this shit no more. When that paycheck hit, it's almost like well, I guess I can do it. You know what I'm saying? Well, I guess I can do it. But that's just because the paycheck for me was nice. You know what I'm saying? I had a nice little paycheck. I was making decent bread. So like, if the paycheck isn't nice, I feel like that it doesn't give you that, you know what, it's worth it. So you're just like, fuck this, man. I don't get paid enough. This job is ass, bro. But I gotta keep doing it to pay my bill. Like, it's a cycle of fucking pain and misery.
so there are two general schools that people fall into when they see that nobody wants to work anymore. The first group are wealthy executives, business owners, or just people who have always worked incredibly hard who don't like that jobs are going unfilled. So they blame it on lazy young people who would rather sit around all day smoking cones and watching Skibidi toilets. The second school of thought agrees that yes, people don't want to work. They don't want to work demeaning jobs where they won't get paid enough to support a decent quality of life. It's nice when two groups who are so different can agree on something. So really, the only thing left is to work out why people don't want to work. Now, in most cases, the jobs that nobody wants to work fall into one of three categories. The first are jobs that are just paying well below market rates given the experience or the location required. Businesses aren't going to be able to fill a full-stack senior development role in Silicon Valley for $50,000 a year plus equity in their questionable pre-seed startup, but there are still plenty that try. Even entry-level jobs that pay minimum wage in very high cost of living areas are going to be much harder to fill in a city where even finance bros are living in shared housing. Now, hot take alert, but just like there are no shortage of crappy businesses and managers that expect to pay workers nothing for world-class skills and experience, there are lots of
Gen Z job seekers should be willing to work for free Huh? Gen Z job seekers should be willing to work for free, long hours, willing to do anything, says Squarespace CMO.
I like you, man. You lie a lot.
workers who expect
Nothing
world-class
even needs to be
pay
said
with
about
little
that.
or no marketable expertise. One of the most insightful pieces of data on this issue is this recent survey right here. It asked a selection of Americans what they considered to be the minimum salary they would need to be financially successful. Now, most of the responses to these numbers have been laughing at the Gen Zs just entering the workforce who think that almost $600,000 a year is a realistic salary goal. Because for most people, it just isn't. Unless you are in a few very specific career paths, there are basically no jobs that pay this money. And even then, you need an insane amount of luck to get those opportunities. Now, you can blame this on young people who don't really know how the world works yet, or social media that makes it look like every hustle bro is flying private, but it's all distracting from a more interesting data point. The average boomer thinks financial success is achieved with a salary of just under $100,000. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, this is still almost double the median national salary. But in most major cities where people can actually find jobs that pay this much, $100,000 certainly doesn't afford a lifestyle of financial success. There is simply a massive gap in expectations between the generations looking for their first jobs and the group responsible for giving out most.
100,000 a year? I need more than that. I got too much shit to take care of. But 100,000 a year, I feel like you could live off that easily. Easily, you could live off 100,000 a year as long as you know how to manage your money.
Of the jobs, so they both agree that nobody wants to work, just for different reasons. The second type of job that nobody wants to work are in workplaces that push their staff, demand unreasonable overtime, or have management that are needlessly abusive. This happens in a shocking amount of businesses across the country, and even if you are lucky enough to avoid a boss that thinks shouting is an effective motivation tool, you have probably worked some overtime out of fear of losing your job or being.
Hey, you wanna know where you get them overtime hours at? In that factory, son. It's mandatory. Mandatory overtime. You say what? It's mandatory today? Fuck. Alright. Hey, man.
Reprimanded. According to a 2023 workplace survey, the average full-time worker across the country studied is now putting in an average of 9.2 hours of unpaid overtime. These jobs often don't have much trouble finding people to start, but they do struggle with high staff turnover. The third are simply jobs that never actually existed. You probably all know about ghost jobs by now, but even if you really do want to work, there is a good chance that most of your applications are just going to build out a workforce database, not to actually be considered for employment. Now, whatever the specific reason, the results are the same. Less people end up working. But aside from settling some beef between entitled Zoomers and some out-of-touch boomers, this data all reveals something more concerning about work in the current economy. It's not that people don't want to work anymore. They simply can't afford to. So
that's what I was saying. It's not. I don't think people are inherently we're just this lazy fucking generation that doesn't want to work. Like at the end of the day, our parents were workers, so we have a little bit of that instilled in us, if any. It's just there's no point. There's no point. Why would I work this job so that when I turn 60, 70 years old, I can finally start living my life? What does that even mean? Like, that doesn't make any sense. I'm living paycheck to paycheck for 40 plus years so that at 60 I can go to fucking Florida. What?
It's time to learn how money works to find out what's really behind the worst phrase in the workplace. This week's video is sponsored by MyHeritage. Ever wondered why whole new form of photo correct system your own forever to been out for because. Okay, so yeah, there are millions of people out there that think nobody wants to work because they couldn't hire someone with 20 years of experience on a programming language that has only been out for 5 years for $15 an hour. There are also people who don't want to work because they think unless they are offered 6 figures in their first role out of high school, it's not worth their time, and they would be better off sitting at home working on their NFT dropshipping business. Both of these groups definitely exist in shockingly large numbers, but even though it's really fun to make fun of both sides, it distracts from the much more important reason why labor force participation is getting worse. Well, as you might have been able to guess, this trend is really being driven by specific age groups and specific locations. If you look at labor force participation and exclude the youngest generation of workers and the oldest generation of workers, it's actually approaching all-time highs, which really makes sense when you think about it. It's common for both men and women to work full-time these days, and for most households, it's simply a financial necessity.
Yeah, it's required.
So yeah, even if people don't want to work anymore, they
That's another thing. You know what? It's a different video. That's a different video.
I never stopped doing it anyway. The reason labor force participation has fallen off in general, though, is because the average is being dragged down by a lot of young workers, old workers. The old workers are the easiest to explain. As people started living longer, retirement ages were pushed back, and more of the population began working in non-physical jobs. As a result, a larger share of the population over 55 remained in the workforce. This has started to reverse though, as self-funded retirement systems and general asset prices have allowed a lot of over 55s to step back from the labor force, especially after COVID, as a lot of people received severance packages and decided that an early retirement was better than going back to the office. Labor force participation from young people just entering the workforce either out of high school or college is also pulling down the average, just for different reasons. More people than ever are getting a college degree, which means they are starting to work later, and fewer people are working part-time jobs while they study because for many, it's simply not worth it given how much debt they are going to be in when they graduate anyway. This might not also be a shock to you, but it's getting really damn hard to find a job out of college. A few months ago, a post from a professor at Berkeley made the rounds after it spoke about his top students from a top college struggling to find work in technology, an industry that was hiring highly intelligent graduates like this as fast as they could make them just 24 months ago. Previously, a Berkeley CS graduate, even if not a top student, would receive multiple appealing job offers in terms of work type, location, salary, and employer. However, outstanding students, like those with a 4.0 in major GPA, are now contacting me worried because they have zero offers. I suspect this trend is irreversible and likely part of the broader trend impacting almost every employment sector. It's pretty grim stuff coming out of one of the best schools in the country. It might not be the most logical thing to do, but a common reaction from people who can't land a job with a degree they got to make them more employable is to just go get another degree. The rate of
I don't know about that one. I feel like you probably start getting a skill. I don't know. Some type of skill.
Master's and PhD recipients has grown even faster than people getting an undergraduate degree, because that's now normal to stand out in a highly competitive job market. And to be honest, it's a nice way for people to avoid the reality of the job market for another few years. Spending another 2 to 8 years at college to get advanced degrees means people aren't in the labor force, which pulls down the average to look worse than it really is. So those are the ages that are perpetuating this dumb myth. But this trend is also highly dependent on location. And to see that, you need to go to the place where apparently the absolute least amount of people want to work. Yes, the Rust Belt state has the lowest labor force participation in the country, but also some of the most unusual statistical anomalies. The state is quite poor after its major industries like coal mining and manufacturing were either outsourced or simply fell out of widespread use. This means that a lot of areas have effectively been left behind with no major employment opportunities, meaning that labor force participation is much lower than the national average. But strangely, in some areas, the participation rate is much higher than what would be expected. A recent study.
So the jobs that were there, they can't use the jobs that are there anymore. So how do they expect them to? I'm confused, Chad.
Conducted by economists from Hamline University, Cornell, and Virginia Tech found that depending on the county, labor force participation in West Virginia ranges from 42% to 77%, a gap between regions of 35%, while the average across the US states is just 17%, less than half of West Virginia. It's not unusual that cities and working towns will have higher labor force participation than other areas, because people often specifically move to these locations just to get work. But this variance was startling and uncovered a bigger national trend. The people in areas that still had work can't afford not to work, and the people in areas with no work couldn't afford to move to areas with work, since it could mean giving up family support networks or simply paying for the cost to relocate housing. A lot of people who had the financial means have already moved out of the state, only making this problem worse, as they take business opportunities and money away with them. It's a dense read because it's an academic paper. It's for nerds. But if you ever feel compelled to say,
okay, I see what's happening. So the people that could possibly get a business going, that have the money to get it up, are leaving. They're like, oh, fuck this, we're out of Virginia. And then the niggas that don't have it are like, bro, what are we supposed to do? Where's those jobs? What are we supposed to do? Okay, I'm seeing it.
that nobody wants to work anymore, I definitely suggest you have a look at it. The report itself also looks at welfare issues specific to West Virginia. But just because the state is experiencing this problem the worst doesn't mean that it's in any way just something hurting them. The trend of a few concentrated cities doing extremely well while everywhere else stagnates can make nationwide figures look good. But it also means people who want to work have an option of trying their luck for one of the few jobs left in areas with fewer opportunities, or living in an extremely expensive city to compete with everybody else fighting over a spot in the few places left where people can reliably get ahead. Finance and tech have become one of the last escape ropes for people to make a deal with the devil to get out of these areas with little to no opportunities. And I am going to be writing an article about how even that career path is becoming impossible in my completely free email newsletter. So sign up if you are interested in.
Alrighty, appreciate you for the video. How money works. With that being said, y'all, I don't know. I just don't see the point of working a job for, if say you had a job, right? And say you only worked it for 30 years. Like, you started working that job at 18. You've been working there for 30 years. You're 48 years old now. You're 48 years old. You've never, like, I don't know. I couldn't do it. With that being said, y'all, hope y'all enjoy the video, and I'm gonna catch y'all in the next one.
She call me Luda, bitch, I roll out with my shooters. She wanna fuck me in a Plymouth Barracuda. I got my gun on, yeah, she know I'm